Hey guys, here's a mixed media page that I did earlier this year as a design team project, but I couldn't get the video up in time because we weren't well and I couldn't voice it over. So instead I thought I'd do it up now just because a few of the process were really cool. So we had these chipboard circles in the kit, and so I'm just using some gesso to go around the top of them and the sides on the inside and the outside. I don't do the bottom because I know they're going to be glued down, but I do those insides and outside parts just because I didn't want the craft showing through so starkly. So I do a coat and then let it dry and do another coat in some of the spots, and then I go over with my distress oxides that we got in the kit. So this is the May kit, the Paisley Days collection, and some other goodies. So I'm just using my paintbrush here and just smushing the colour on. So I'm getting quite liberal with the colour because I know it'll stay there on top of that gesso, but I also didn't dry my gesso 100%, as you would know, but it also seeps in as well because the Distress Oxide is all different tones, and the look of it as well, as if you don't shake it up really well, it can separate a little and give you those different colours. So it's nice to have a little play with thickness of the layering as you go along, and you can see here they've dried blue, so they reacted. And then so I've gone over just spraying some with the green so that there is some little speckles of the green. I like the fact that it has come out blue, and then there's a bit of green to add to it. And then I'm going to add some ink splatters just with the nozzle, still using the same green, the cracked pistachio colour. And some of them I'm dabbing bigger drops onto them, and others just some smaller sprinkles using the nozzle like I am here. So that's all I do to those ones. I do heat blow them and let them dry for a little bit, and I bring them all over to my cardstock and I work out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to layer them. I've got this photo here of my son just having a glass, a paper cup of water at the dentist. And he's been a little bit fancy having his finger sticking up like he's having tea with the Queen. So I thought it'd be cool to have these circles in a formation around, just as a vertical aspect. And I'm trying to work out exactly what I want, how I want them in a way that looks appealing. So it does take me a little bit of time, but that's part of the process, is just having a play to see what looks good to your eye. This looks really nice here, and I'm going to just have a general pencil line to outline it, because I am going to go in with some colour in the background and add some of the more of the cracked pistachio using the packaging technique. Oh, there's my hair. And I will have that different colour. So I'm going to use my ink, my stamp pad again. I just find it adds the colour nicely, it's a bit more controllable than packaging, but works in the same method as the packaging technique in terms of spreading the colour around. And then I just go real crazy, spray it on, and then spray some water on at the same time. Here's my finger, spread it out, hey, why not? And so you can see this is going to be a bit more of the green tone, and the circles were more of the blue tone with some of the green. But because I've spread the water through and fully haven't shaken the bottle, you can see some of the blue coming through on the paper. So now I haven't soaped up the colour, and I'm using my heat tool to dry it so that the colour, the darkness and the different shades stay. So if you mop up the colour with the paper towel, it's obviously going to mute and dilute the colour, but also then if you let it heat gun to dry, you get the colour straight away rather than if it seeps in and spreads out. So adding little speckles of water just so that I can pull them up after a minute or so with the paper towel, just leaves that little bleached kind of a look. And then I'm adding some ink splatters just for some deeper colour and some different interest as well. So still now I'm thinking that the mixed media and the design of vertical across will go down the bottom here, but then I soon end up turning it around and finding that it works much better at having it in the top half of the layout. So you can see here, if you're having this kind of an element, you're going to end up playing around a little, and you can see it just works much better once I turn it around. I can just, like that, I've got all the circles in the right spot. So I'm going to commit to them. I've stuck them down, stuck my photo down with a little bit of fun foam, and I've got, as you can probably see from the beginning, all of these little pieces, what are they called? Pinwheels. That was still, I'd made them earlier in the month, and I'd made a million of them. I got distracted with Netflix, and so I'm thinking I'll use the green, blue ones and the yellow and green ones, but then I end up just using the green ones. So I pull off those yellow, and I'm going to work with the green ones instead. So I'm just having a play. There's a few different sizes, and the green ones here, I only got the 2 different sizes left, but when I first made them in the first couple of layouts that I use them with, I do use a different size of them. I do consider whether I want to add some stamping in the background. So maybe I haven't glued them down yet, but I will do that off screen. And while I'm just having the last little think about it, I go and layer my photo just to make sure that once my photo is layered with pattern paper, it still works with the positioning of those pinwheels. So you can see here, just using the offcuts of the 6x6 paper and any printable Project Life cards that I've got. Just using the green tones. I knew that they're in the green and the blue as well. I knew that the kit had enough in there to had some few different layers. And there is this frame here. I do go to that yellow. Yellow and green go so nicely together with a bit of pop of blue that's why I keep reaching for the yellow. And in the end, I actually, spoiler alert, I actually do end up putting yellow into the layout. Well, it's probably not spoiler alert, but it might be if you didn't notice in the thumbnail or you didn't see the original project when I had it as my design team for May's project. So you can see here, I just started with that frame, and then I'm going to layer up the papers. Even though I had them layered, when I went to stick them down, I totally changed it. And that's why a lot of the times I stick as I go, because I end up changing it, and then it can sometimes be frustrated, like, why did I bother with that extra work? So I'm going to focus more on layering to the left, just because it has a lot of that circles and the pinwheels to the right of the photo and the layout's going to have, so I don't need all of the layers on all areas of the photo. Adding this little paper bag that our exclusive die cuts come in, and that's always a nice little pop of interest. And then I'm going to add a bit more of a full mat around with this blue. Am I lying? No, yeah, we did add some yellow. I'm thinking, I thought maybe this was a different, I'm thinking of a different photo for all the layering and stuff, but I do add some yellow, I'm sure. So this one here, I just crumpled with some loveliness. What on earth did you just say? So I crumpled that layer and then just slightly put some double-sided tape on it so that it connects the photo mat to that. And then I like the little pop of ruffle texture that it gives. Then I'm going to add some fun foam behind it in 2 layers so that it is up from all those circles, but also keeps that ruffleness of that paper as much as possible underneath. It's really nice. If you haven't crumpled up your paper and then unfolded it and used it as some layering or a pop of interest on your paper, then you definitely need to get set doing it, because it is quite fun. So obviously I lied before when I said that was all glued down, because it obviously is not. But I'm just using my Tombow Mono aqua glue here to glue it down. And all it is glued down, all the pinwheels are glued down, and I'm coming in with some yellow enamel dots. Now I started with green, tealy kind of colours. I didn't like it, so I'm putting the yellow in, and this is why I pop in some yellow in the rest of the layout. So these are the enamel dots that came with our collection, with our kits this month. Love enamel dots, they're always nice. And I find when you get them in the kits, like I tend to use them more than the ones that I have in my stash. So I sort of just reach for them every now and then and might add one or two to something. Now there's this beautiful bright yellow flare that we got in the kit. Kaiser Craft are now doing this Curios, they're calling it, and they're glass covered flare basically. And so they're really nice. And they are super sticky. They are the most stickiest scrapbooking embellishment I've ever owned or used. They're just amazing. But, you know, be warned that if you are sticking it down, just know that it will stick once you stick it anywhere near some paper. So I'm pulling a little bit more yellow into these photo layers. Pulling my really useful box insert here just a bit closer. Trying to find some words that I can add to the layout. There's so much in these kits that sometimes it can be tricky to narrow down exactly what you want to use, which is sometimes, well, actually I've found every month I make a mono, and every time I video it I can't say it, monochromatic layout, because then I find if you're focusing on one color you can just pull out those colors and run with it. It's really fun when you're layering. It's really, really fun. So, rifling through it for the longest time in history and wondering if I need to put some up in the background. But I don't think the background needs much more going on. I really like the mixed media and the amount of it and the randomness of it, and then those pinwheels and the circles just add that a lot of texture to it to bring that pop of interest. So just playing around with this tab, and it needs to go there, but because I have that frame with the word there, I'm struggling as to how it could sit properly. So, as always, you can always change things, so I am just pulling that apart and ruining half of it in the process, but that's okay. I'm going to stick down, cut it and stick it so that it is in a position that is better suited for the layering that's going to go on that side, and I'm going to instead cover up that word and just have that pop of green hanging out. I'm going to put in this yellow tab, and I do use both sides, and I'm just going to adhere both sides together so that they are, like stuck, and then it gives you that double texture of the thickness, rather than, because you can definitely cut them in half and use them on two different layouts, or two different sections of your layering, but I wanted the thickness of it doubled over. So you can see here all this ephemera in this little section here that I'm rifling through on the right. There's so much. I decide that there's nothing in there I want. Instead I go to some thickers and work out a title. And I've put down wild there in the green because it was one of the few words I could spell in the green. And then I have a little bit of an experiment. So I pulled out these wood veneer thickers that we got in the collection, and I just try to distress Oxide straight over it because I've been using paint pens over them, and it didn't work with just the Distress Oxide. It's too thin and it's you can see right through it. So instead I get my gesso out, and then I'm going to add the green on top, and this then brings in those color tones again, because it's going to be like when I colored those circles, the chipboard circles at the beginning. So I'm going to pull out my word, and it's going to be fancy. It's what I wanted my title to be all the time when I started with this photo. But because you can see here the letters, and I pulled out an M thinking I had to cut it down, and then I find an N. They weren't all green, so, or even all blue, but I wanted it to be that greeny tone. So instead I'm going to gesso over the top just loosely, and then I'm going to add some green. Now don't wait for my gesso to dry 100%, so I have it mixing in with the Distress Oxide as it goes on and as it dries, and it gives you that really grungy textured look, but also brings in those different greens and the blues that you can get with the Distress Oxide. The other thing is, so here's where I realise that I don't know how to spell, but instead the other thing I realise is I use my heat gun to dry the gesso a little bit, and I've got it sticking on the plastic for the thickers. And of course the heat gun melts it and bubbles it, and it's just stupid of me. So instead I pull the letters off, and I put them on some of the wax paper, or the dye release paper that you get It's one that I've gotten from Kaiser Craft with some text on it, and I like to use them for this mixed media. I use them at the beginning with these circles because the colour wipes off, and if the colour doesn't wipe off, if it's like paint, the acrylic paints and whatnot, it dries on and gives you a nice little collagey piece that's really fun to add to some layering or some art journal pages. So you can see here I'm just using the nozzle, too lazy to get a paintbrush, which are literally, like if I put my hand out, they're right there. But you can see here, here's the process, and here I am with all the letters all dried and coloured, and I'm trying to work out where I want my title. I thought it'd be so fun to do like a rounder circle, but there wasn't room between the circles. So instead, I'm going to go with the bottom of the layout of the photo, but then I do move it so that it's vertically up that right hand side where all the goodness is going on. So going to glue that down on the side there. I do move it and then decide on it, and then I just use my glue, my Tombow glue, just because it had, you know, been used with the heat gun and all this mixed media. I knew that they weren't one iota sticky anymore. So that's really fun. I love the way that works together. Just going to use my tweezers to push them down. They are still a bit wet, and really, because the puffy stickers are so puffy, the gesso and the paint didn't stick 100%. Like, I also didn't work on it 100% effort, but you still have to be a little bit careful. So I have that yellow word to the left there. I'm just trying to work out if anything else is needed, and pull out some of the ephemera again, the labels, to see if there's anything that could go. Pull out some blue ones, and pull out that yellow one. I'm going to end up cutting. I was going to think about layering those two so that the colours were popping off the page and have a journaling spot, but instead I don't worry about journaling. I already know, and you've probably already seen it. I've used this photo recently. Actually, I used 2 photos of the same photo, but that's okay, because I was saying in another video that I do it for the fun of it, and sometimes collections work for the same photo. It's just nice to get playing. So I do rip that one in half so that I can use it in 2 different spots. Have a play. I don't need it up there, but for some reason I really had to think about it for a long time. Because I'm using the wet glue, that is a bit movable while it dries. But put it here, and I'm going to add some add more. Take that yellow off, but just because it wasn't straight, I was going to get rid of it, but it needed it there, so it went back. Sometimes do you do that, or is it just crazy and it's just me, where you take something off and you're like, oh, that was terrible there, and as soon as you do it, you look at it and you go, no, that needed to be there. Why would it need to be off there? That's crazy. So rip that one in half so I can add some to this left hand side, and that's what I realized what was wrong with that yellow sticker is, or that yellow word, is that it just needed a pop of blue behind it, using that label there and the one on the left there. And that's going to be my layout. So hopefully you've enjoyed the process today and you've stuck around. Definitely subscribe if you want to watch any of my future videos. And leave me a comment if you'd like me to know something or you have a question. I will catch you next time, guys. Bye.